appreciate that a little bit. We'll see if that priority still stays, as we have gotten some of those big crucial bans. The Sejuani did make it through. Hacker will be happy to pick that one up, but now the response from TT.
And that is very important because you look at what Care plays. Actually, most of his most played champions are of melee variety as well. He's not been a Yone player in the way that Ucal has, which has been one of Sejuani's better counterparts in the mid lane when you've been playing that in the jungle. So watch for FPX to play something like a triple melee topside, which is very different from what we've seen from them so far. We've seen a lot of that Annie playing towards like the mid-game team fights. If you pick something like a Silas or an Akali for Care at this point, it's a very different style of composition. Actually is going to be that Yone, and you can hover that all you want. I'm very sad you're not locking it in. We actually did have a game of it in the LDL just while we were casting earlier as well.
I'm jealous.
It was Team WE's Academy team ended up playing that, ended up losing, but still not going to see that again in this game for FPX. They hovered it, but they have put themselves into melee solo laners.
And we were saying priority at bot lane, but because of those bans, there is no priority, at least in the first phase of bot lane. It is a double solo lanes picked up for FPX, which is something I feel like I haven't seen in a long time. We get the Akali as the final pick for TT in the first phase.
Yeah, the Akali's locked in. And the bonus to something like the Akali is that you can't auto-attack Akali very easily when she drops that Shroud, which means you can play around this these melee synergies all you want, but good luck actually trying to lock down that Akali. Still, FPX, huge amount of ability to catch out and burst down in that top side of the map. They have given up,
the target ban.
They have given up the ability to pick something towards that bot lane and pick something in the lane, which has arguably decided both of these games so far in terms of late game scaling. Neither of these teams are going to have the Zeri. You're not going to have yourself some of these utility carries on the bot side as well. See that Ziggs banned out. Maybe want to ban out something like, you could ban away something like an Ezreal or a Jhin maybe. Jhin is something which Lwx has played a number of times before. Just stopping FPX having like a utility bot lane, which can just survive on its own and then aid the top side when it comes to it.
There's some more safety gone from Lwx as well. The Xayah taken away. We'll see what the continued focus for FPX is. If it is just this top lane into Hoya and maybe try and take something away from that. But I definitely want to see how this kind of bot lane peters out, since we do have the Varus early pick for TT. I want to see how they kind of utilize this going to the second phase. That is the Heimerdinger that comes out, the classic Varus combo.
Yeah. Wondering if they just want to pick towards something a bit, but they have the range advantage right now with the Varus, and you're playing against triple melee topside. Maybe you can pick something a little bit disengagey, something a little bit more long range from bot side yourself. Depends if you want to pick away something like a... You can save support counter pick until last tier, so because support matchup does determine bot lane quite a lot. In fact, actually, that is what they're going to go towards. I was wondering maybe if you could pick away something like a Karma to deny something like Jhin Karma or Ezreal Karma. That could have been quite valuable as well. But as it stands, picking that Gnar, just knowing that it can kind of go into that Fiora and save counter pick, that makes a lot of sense, right? It does make a lot of sense, because you already know the matchup the top side is going into.
Yeah, and for Hoya, it is his most played champion by far. Again, double the amount played by the next in his competitive successes at least. But we will see now the double pickup for FPX, the Aphelios here for Lwx, and we'll see what they want to kind of pair that one up with here.
The Aphelios in game 2 from TT didn't really achieve what they wanted it to. FPX going to try their own hand at that.
I would actually really like the Thresh here, but it's actually the Rakan.
Yeah, I would have liked the Thresh too, because now you have a situation where you have both sides of the map which are actually quite volatile. And
Insta-lock.
Now you have to play into something like the Varus Renata, where you're sat there as the Aphelios and the Rakan. You're going to get out-traded quite early into the game. Level 1, you absolutely cannot fight, so you're going to lose bot side priority there. And on the top side, you're going to have a little bit more ability to skirmish, but if you're losing in isolation in that 2v2, I think that's a little bit worrying from FPX. So TT need to be very careful not to give early kills over towards this top side, but if they do play safe around that, I think Huanfeng and xinliu should be able to get themselves a good foothold in this game through bot lane.
Now, the biggest conversation we had last time we saw the Aphelios was the fact that it was kind of not...
But team fights might get harder as the game goes on.
Well, we hear what is at stake here. Maybe FPX ending their skid into the bottom of the standings here, wanting to correct the 0-6 streak. TT with all the gyos, the loudness coming from the fans, trying to make a mark here and not let themselves fall to FPX as we get to game 3 here. It is just a standard line and early start here from both junglers potentially on this top side going towards bottom lane.
No wards
I
put
actually
down
would love,
just yet.
as you were kind of saying, sorry, I just really, I love, and now we're actually seeing that adaptation. I would have liked to see that change where we do see the opposite side starts, and we actually get that here for Hacker, but he is spotted out.
He's spotted out, but well, I mean, there's a ward on the Raptors. Is this where the Hacker wants to start there anyway? I think that they've kind of put themselves... yeah, so it's going to be W starting the Sejuani into kind of clearing those Raptors. It's going to be seen doing that. Now, the good thing about starting on a camp where you're warded, and that's going to sound weird, because despite the enemy team knowing that you are starting there, they don't get to track you anytime after that first camp, which means you could actually go into a number of different options, right? You can go from, as we saw in one of the first games, see, wow, fighting against lethal tempo early, Ucal. Not sure you want to do that.
Goodness.
You've now traded a lot of your HP into a top side, which we've already said can get into your lanes and really affect you early. But either way, one thing that we saw very earlier in the series was Hacker taking Raptors and then immediately heading topside. That's not going to be the case in this one. He's actually going to go straight towards the spot side clear instead. And that's something which you can't track now from that one ward. You can track the first camp, not where it evolves after that point.
I actually see Huanfeng getting a nice little trade. I know at this point not there, but the Hail of Blades proc there being utilized to try to get some priority in bottom lane. They did get that level 2, a little bit of that strength. It looks like a full clear potentially coming out for Beichuan, and looking to where he could affect these solo lanes to some extent after that clear comes through.
I think Beichuan's job might end up being more towards reactive than proactive in this game. Making sure that Hacker doesn't fly into a lane as the Sejuani can do and make things very difficult. Care with control over mid lane right now. Does give him some options to roam into this top river as well. Hacker not spotted out. Has to head across here. He's currently off of vision. Oh, fails the E.
Yeah. All right, a little bit of damage, but here is the call from Beichuan. Realizing Ucal's in a little bit of trouble, will be pressured early as this Akali. Hacker buying a little bit of time, but now playing pretty aggressive into the cheeky nuggy play of Beichuan.
Yeah, Hacker stays right. Gets the full camp steal. That is so disgusting.
Oh, and mid lane Ucal. Okay, yeah, he was going to have to do something. He was about to get in a lot of trouble there. That flash early, though, that Ucal.
That is a couple of shuriken flips in a row, which have cost Ucal control over this lane. Has to blow flash that's the way you kind of cancel your E mid-flight. But Hacker, seriously impactful minute or two of play. Gets into that top rush outside of vision. Waits for the wave crash in mid lane as they've just about managed to time Beichuan heading towards his own Raptors as well. Gets to contest, gets to steal, gets to put pressure onto Ucal as well, which leads him to making an unforced error, really, just under that.
This is that reactive play, though, as you're saying.
I guess towards topside.
Beichuan up here as a response. They think they might have Hoya. He's trying to stack up the Mega Gnar. Does get CC'd. Here comes Beichuan, though. They want to get first blood. Hoya! He goes down. Hacker! He's not going down as well. That's 1 kill and first blood for FPX.
Hacker in the past has been a little too over-aggressive, a little discoordinated, but in this third game where it matters, puts some of those warriors to rest, gets impact in the mid lane, gets some impact in the enemy jungle, and then affects top lane as well, and gets a kill over to Fearness on this Fiora, which is, of course, going to be a very flippy individual matchup. The Fiora, if you get ahead in this matchup, just becomes an absolute split-push menace, and the Gnar can no longer kind of nullify that lane. Beichuan now forced in an awkward position, doesn't have flash, caught out in the enemy jungle.
I thought he was going to use the exit on the other side of the wall, but he just goes into it, and Fearness chases down a kill. That's 2 now to the Fiora, and my god, that's terrifying.
Yeah, Beichuan, I think he uses the Warrior Trickster to get over into the blue buff pit, tries to get there more quickly, tries to get the timing right, but absolutely misjudges it. TT, from having a strong game 1, despite their mid-game worries, and in the second game, which arguably they could have won as well. This is a disastrous early game where they're falling apart through this top side the first time they let the Sejuani get through.
And these kinds of games are so important for TT. You were talking about how over 5 losses, it's a difficult terrain to navigate. Going into the later part of the season, TT needed to win this to put them in those standings, give them a little bit of solidifying it, and show what they're bringing to the later half of the season. And my goodness, they are going to have to dig themselves out of this hole early.
Yeah, this is one of those games which you really, really wanted to slam home. You got yourself to 6 wins. With the number of games left in the split as well for these teams, it would have seen them to actually a fairly good situation. FPX side, you know, They've pretty much kissed their hopes of playoffs on already with 8 losses on the board, but still, it's not quite over yet. Stranger things have happened. Fearness.
How wonderful do those underdog wins feel, though? I mean, that's that kind of stuff that just gets you through the day. You're just happy to kind of knock down a peg these teams that are vying for these kinds of playoff moments. And now we see FPX moving very much around the Dragon Pit, but so are TT as they come and put some of that vision that we've known them to be so strong with.
So TT down a significant amount of gold before 7 minutes. This is always the worry against so much the LPL has loved to do, regardless of meta, honestly, but very much with the way that the jungle meta has turned out, playing towards triple melee topside. It's very easy to fight, very easy to skirmish around these lanes, and things snowball very quickly as soon as those first kills come in. And TT, the first time facing it this series, they just haven't been prepared on that regard, and now FPX not even falling short on this bot side, doing fine through this individual lane. The Varus, Renata glasc, which we've kind of called out as being a strong lane, can take control of things early on, hasn't really done much for TT so far, and FPX pick up that dragon. Yeah. Everything is going well for them in this early game.
The use of that early game here by FPX has been great to see. Hacker really coming into his own, trying to move around the map and deliver some of these resources where we had said, like, if you could get Care and LWX some of this gold, or even now, at least this point, Fearness coming into the series, it is that facilitation that works out so well for them. We get a flash down bot lane. Will be Huanfeng's big cooldown gone. I'll actually see maybe Ucal taking a roam.
Well, danger of that play was Lwx just hit 6. Would have had the ability to fire out a Moonlight Vigil, particularly with that weapon combo as well. Firing something like those Chakrams forward with that ultimate stacks them up so quickly. That burst comes out much quicker than a lot of people realize. So TT just about able to disengage from that one. And this is not what you want to see from this lane if you're TT. You're now getting to the point where you are, significantly far behind for this timestamp. If this is at 20 minutes, 1,000 gold, you don't really care about it so much. At 8 minutes, you certainly do. Herald's coming up on the table. I'm not sure TT are in a position to contest that at that point, especially not against the Yone ult being online as well. You're going to have to get to a point at some point where TT can set up an objective and just hope beyond all hopes that the Renata ult bails you out of these fights.
Hoya in a little bit of trouble. We saw actually the Moonlight Vigil used there just to put some poke damage down on the LWX. Hoya will be able to make it out the back of the pit, but it should be Rift Herald going over to FPX. Beichuan was on bottom side of the map, actually trying to wrap back around on LWX, who does not have any vision here. Ucal, it goes in on mid lane, but as soon as Chocho shows up, means that Ucal should be trying to get out of this one. Does get the face shield used on him, and a little bit more damage down. That interesting little backflip there, but LWX has fallen bot lane. Ucal made it out in mid lane, burning his flash and that perfect execution. It's LWX who kind of takes the bullet.
Why are we leaving LWX alone in bot lane again, lads? What's happening in game 1? And that was one of the big turning points where it felt like TT could get Huanfeng online. That was on a Zarya course, but how the heck did this turn up around here? You can see that, Rakan's roam mid lane. Rakan has been seen mid lane. Now, process of elimination, if Rakan is mid lane, he's not bot lane. As LWX, you gotta understand that the enemy team knows you're alone. Just doesn't get the memo once more, and LWX in what's becoming quite a common thing for him, gets caught out alone.
Oh boy, we're getting a play on the other side of the map now as well. Fearness able to tank down, gets the kill, and nicely executed from FPX, who have just leveled up in this series, one game at a time.
So despite AD carry dying on bot side, cross map does come shortly afterwards. The next play afterwards. And 3 kills now with that Fiora. That's pretty scary by my eyes.
That is just downright terrifying. I mean, the side lane is going to look horrendous. I mean, Hoya's going to have to try to find something to do in the team fights or find something, because it's going to be very difficult for, I feel like, TT to have a response to this side lane pressure now. Divine Sunder completed under 10 minutes and 30 seconds here for Fearness. And that's going to be held to pay in the top lane. Maybe they can find something bot.
Well, you were just saying, like, oh, the side lane is going to look awful. I'm like, I wonder what kind of art style like a side lane would be at that point. Maybe it's like a graffitied art style, just like Fiora was here, just like halfway down the lane, just on the turret. At this point, TT is like, oh no, to get the street cleaners out at some point, because this is looking pretty disastrous for us in this one. This is really dangerous now at this point, because you already kind of said need to be getting a lot of value out of Renata ults for this game to go better for TT. But if you don't get to do that, sidelines
but
losing,
if Fearness dies, then what happens there? Ooh, Beichuan. Gets the flash though play. Nice little knock up there. Fearness tanking up though under tower now. They gotta get this kill. 600 gold goes to Beichuan. As now in the mid lane, it looks like a little bit of pressure given, but some plates to TT. And that Rift Herald charge in mid lane for FPX.
Yeah, the Rift Herald charge makes this a much more even trade than TT would have liked to do. Beichuan shows topside, not able to respond to 3 plates going down in mid to that Yone. So Care, a lot of gold in pocket. And Hoya, in fairness to him, trades out really well against that Fiora. That's what makes that play possible to force topside and gets that shut down over onto Beichuan as he turns up into lightning. And yeah, so
he takes it so fast.
We've had a big series of plays kind of going across the board here, right? We had like the top lane play and then the mid lane play, but because everyone's going across the board, yeah, we're not stopping. We're just playing again, I guess.
All right, look, we got some time, guys.
Yeah, but this is actually again a continuation of why this is really dangerous now for TT, because even you're playing topside because you realize you can't allow the Fiora to just keep crashing waves and to keep kind of playing the way that she's doing so far. You have immediately Herald response in mid lane, which means there has to be a response there towards there as well. Ucal kind of goes in for that big play. While all this is happening, you have the Aphelios on bot side as well, which is making use of this extended play towards topside to get some play towards bot side. TT, they can't respond everywhere at once, and now they have to go towards this dragon as well. FPX keeping up the pressure.
All right, this is a 4v4 here. Beichuan in the pit, but it goes down to LWX. The grand entrance fate sealed, and the fate of xinliu is gone. Now Ucal and Beichuan looking for something on the exit here. The shuriken flip, they get a little bit of damage on the Care. They're circling back, but Chocho is here. Nice knock up on Huanfeng though. Chocho going back in with the grand entrance. The CC chain is there. LWX is now here, but we've already lost Hacker. Care should go down after his soul returns to his body, but LWX will be able to stack up these chakrams a little bit. Beichuan should be able to find the back end of this play, though. Chocho gets in out with the grand entrance, and LWX kiting away beautifully.
Again, another really extended play. LWX not there for all of the start of it. Big, big factor in that fight, though, is the first person to die. It's the Renata. We haven't seen a Renata ult this game yet, and those big ults which TT would really like to see to flip the course of these team fights hasn't come to fruition just yet. So FPX, they walk away with a dragon. They walk away with some traded kills. Fight's a little more scrappy than they would have liked. Maybe they overstayed a bit too much towards the end of that, but still, nonetheless, ahead in this game in terms of the gold lead, ahead of this game in terms of the objectives as well. And with strong side laners, the strong melee side laners that can kind of go into any kind of matchup they want at this point, with 2 dragons backing them up, TT are now faced with a very difficult reality of they want grouped up fights, but they have no real easy way to force them unless FPX fight them on their terms. They don't have an early soul point to force FPX away from side lanes, and despite this fight going really, really scrappy, FPX still have a lot of gold and a lot of fighting potential to bring to bear, even in these situations.
Yeah, we could see where some of that comfort with this comp just gets so oppressive in the way that it works out. Once Hacker goes down, obviously you lose a little bit of that, but I think it is a nice little capitalization in the back end to get Chocho and LWX out. I think TT themselves able to fight back onto the map, only 1,000 gold now. We did see turret plates fall, so no extra gold at least here for LWX, but that will be the tower going over, and that's first tower of the game.
First tower of the game, and LWX, more gold to... just
God,
try to shut down the Fiora, shut down the sidelines if they can. Fearness gets the memo though, sweeps that bush.
Oh, there's 2 people in that bush. Trying to get away from the 3rd person that can come join this one, but he has popped the ghost and he has the rest of FPX coming. Nice blast cone does get the rest of TT out.
So now just fine. Second Herald up and alive. Everyone roaming the way over to this one. Maybe finally we can see that Renata ult we have been looking for. LWX gets the Bloodthirst stacked up.
Ucal grabs him. He's there, but they can't get the damage down now. FPX going to try to move in through this mid lane after taking this tower. Maybe just giving up this Rift Herald here to TT. So it'll be a trade. Another tower goes to LWX, but that future gold is there for TT. The Soul Unbound has been used. Care could get engaged on it, goes back in. Moonlight Vigil goes wide again. See the Chocho engaged, a little bit of disconnect here as Chocho's just gone. Now Yuki has baited out the side fight. The Cyclone comes through. He's locked down. Perfect execution. Gets that. Xinliu with that flash play of the Renata takeover. That's 2 kills to Beichuan. And we thought FPX had something going in the early game. Well, TT have turned that bus right around.
FPX, they overplay their hand. They go for everything. They're greedy. They take the mid lane turret and they try and take the fight afterwards with poor positioning. And TT finally find themselves a grouped fight where they can bring to bear some of their more AoE damage. They get themselves a gold lead. Second Herald breaks up in that mid lane out of turret. And FPX, despite all the praise we gave them for this early game, throw away what was a pretty good game state for them.
It's because the lead is here with Fearness. They're on an island right now. Like, when you get to the team fights, you still have a lot of disparity between, obviously, Lwx and Huanfeng, but it's a lot more even fight, and you have to look at the kind of team fight potential that we had stated for TT in those situations.
Yeah, you can't just waltz over these team fights. So let's see exactly what comes around with this. This is just after FPX. They choose to take that mid lane out of turret, but it leaves Care in a really awkward position. He has to E backwards, and then of course he's going to have to flip himself forward into the play anyway. Rakan doesn't get a great engage. Huanfeng is basically uncontested in this fight as well. As soon as the second arrow comes up, he gets to combo into this last kill as well. Xinliu finally able to really impact this team fight.
And we haven't seen Renata in a while, it feels like. At least I haven't, even though it was such a staple at the end of last year.
She's been conspicuously missing.
And now we get to see a beautiful response to kind of the draft that we got out of FPX, and it's working out so far. We were wondering, like, where are these hostile takeovers? Well, you get the one that matters, and it does matter.
Let's see if they can replicate that at some point later into this game as well. Gold basically even. Dragon started up. Renata ult back available as well. That one's a fairly long cooldown, but has made its way back to availability in this one. FPX though, this is the bonus of taking those early dragons. They don't actually have to care about going for a third one at this point. It's not like TT have got themselves their own soul point to play around. Talked about Fearness having that individual gold lead. Using that to expand itself a little more. Uncontested side lane pressure. Push that in with the demolish. And FPX looking to play through long side lanes now. Something which TT still can't answer completely effectively.
That'll be the Serpent's Fang completed second for Huanfeng, so getting a little bit of that utility here as well as taking away some of that shielding potential coming out from FPX, and see that lethality build.
Well, so part of the reason that's coming through, and we don't see Serpent's Fang that much, but on the other side, we'll notice first item from Aphelios. This is something that we see not all the time, but occasionally. Now we're seeing this champion coming back in. Is Bloodthirster first into the Gale Force second. See that Lwx has finally finished that 2 combo coming in. And I'm actually not sure if Aphelios is running overheal right now. I don't know the exact runes which Lwx is running, but will have, of course, the Severum shield on top of that too. That means if you hit the Aphelios, even when he's at full HP, you're denying half of the shield, which is kind of on the overshield on top of that. It's actually pretty high value if you're hitting the Aphelios first.
Let's see if that actually comes to fruition here. I do like to see kind of the item completions coming online, getting even into some of those second items. We get Ucal getting some sidelane gold with the tower there. Hacker looking to hover over Toto, but when we spotted out by that ward, should be a little bit of calmness as Baron spawning on the map, and TT, please stay away.
I was going to mention it.
Is that too
Very
soon?
Good call, though.
Is that...
No. Like, disclaimer, on the next, like, 5 to 10 minutes, we have seen some real strange stuff out of these Baron plays in the first games of this series. Particularly when TT have been ahead. It's felt like TT, they want to play around the Baron. They know that the Baron is where they want to play. Just don't really know how to do it. FPX, though, with control of the map so far, they have the pushing side lanes. They have the Aphelios able to kind of walk up and use his Bloodthirster as well. Maybe that changes the equation, because FPX will be the ones which potentially look towards that Baron first.
Yeah.
Or at least it's a very different way from the first 2 games that TT would have to force the Baron.
Very true. Xinliu actually having Flash coming up, so about to have that hostile takeover combo play available. Ooh, Fearness actually pushed out of the bottom lane there. Ended up pushing out the Ghost as well. Hacker just trying to foray himself into a little bit of vision control.
Fearness doesn't exactly have magic resist when you're sitting around at half HP with Ucal proto-belting at you. Yeah, you don't really take chances on that one. You want to be winning these side lanes. You cannot afford to give stupid deaths in the side lane. Fiora players worldwide have learned this over many years. Fiora is great up until you overestimate your potential and just going to walk into like 3 people and die. Then the advantage, which you've worked really hard to slowly build up over time, means much, much less. So Fearness, paying respect
But
where
that's
it
the
is
fine
due.
line, ain't it? That's where you love to play. That's the crazy is our game line.
True. Crazy is how quickly that like amount of gold can be given over though. Because despite being despite having like 3 kills and having numerous items, Fiora is never at a point in the game where she can't overplay her hand as well. It's one of the reasons why Fiora has slipped in and out of meta at various points with it, because Fiora, you know, you walk into like 2-3 people, you give up a kill, and suddenly you feel much worse about life. You only have so many mistakes you're able to kind of play around on those side lanes. Minimap kind of expanding though. Fiora heading towards this bot lane once again. FPX, as we said, they are the ones who kind of control the map right now. TT, without winning side lanes, need to be very careful about how they choose to approach this Baron as well. Actually, it might be, dare I say it, on TT to force towards this Baron again and force this Fiora away from the side lane, away from the 1v1s where she really excels against someone like Hoya's Gnar. So TT, what's she going to do? How are you going to force this? In fact, they're going towards the side lane first. Oh, it's way too late though.
Low.
Or is it?
Knockback, is it? Fearness. Oh no, what were we saying about giving over that lead? Fearness, he should go down to Ucal here, tanking up a store, but that's 400 gold over to TT's mid laner. The Shining Star comboed with the combo of gold.
Yeah, so solo lane is a TT, comboing up. Ucal shadowing in that bot lane, teleporting over to that side of the map to bail out the Gnar in an awkward side lane matchup. And Fearness, despite having that individual gold lead, has done what we just said, made a mistake on that side lane. Fiora is not infallible in 1v1 or 1vx scenarios. This way that gold lead, and suddenly FPX not quite as confident in their side lane play as they could be.
I think it's a real come up at least for TT. And kind of maintaining a little bit of that gold stasis here. Now we do have another dragon spawning up, could be a soul point for FPX, but take another look at what happened in bot lane.
So when you are going for these all-ins on a side lane as a Fiora, what you really want to be doing is making sure your team is in a position to respond somewhere else on the map. But because you have a Varus and a Renata, you can stand, you know, a full screen away and still threaten you. You can't really engage into them with impunity. And they have the ability to kind of poke you out over the wall. TT were never in threat of giving up a Baron. They were never in threat of losing somewhere else on the map. So Fearness, while has the power to take those 1v1s, needs to just be a bit more connected with the rest of his team to make sure that there is a play in response should he lose the 1v2.
Oh, I see some of that vision actually being figured out by TT around this Baron did. Oh my god. No.
They're on it again.
Nymaera, no.
TT, they're on Baron again. This time though, they're actually choosing to go for the turn.
All right. Hacker missing the Glacial Prison there. They'll have FPX pushing up the mid lane, so they have to kind of respond to this, but Ucal is hovering over the backside, maybe a flank or maybe getting caught out.
Oh, he's kind of alone right now.
Oh. He is. He's going to need to get out of there, but so much CC goes golden. There's the xinliu play over the wall, but xinliu might go down as well. Now you get the engage the Cyclone on the back line here. They might find out Lwx, but Beichuan has the flash. The Moonlight Visor goes wide. Ucal! He's in the back line. That perfect execution. He can find one more, but he can find no more after that. That's more going over to Care, who's 3-2 on the Yone. They're looking for more Fearness, bringing that lead to bear here. Big engage. He's down though. Huanfeng and Hoya taking it up, and Hoya's about to get the Mega Gnar. He's gonna find Lwx here. He has it into the wall. No, he doesn't need it. The damage is enough, and you cannot take it. An ace for TT.
TT finally win a Baron fight! The Baron doesn't go down, but they finally head towards the Baron. They managed to get a fight. I don't know whether I like this approach either way. Ucal does get caught out in the middle of nowhere, sniffed out by FPX. This looks like the Baron, the Renata ult, which should win the game, but there's a cleanse on the Aphelios. Maybe if you do that without that, that is what really seals this fight, but through that again. Ucal so close to finishing off 2 kills. Trying to make the plays which have seen him so much success beyond this point. This is so fractured after this point though. When you have very high mobility check,
no!
There we go again, folks!
Stop it! I cannot do this! Oh, the chains of corruption come in at this time. I don't know if there's much. TT come through. Ucal getting locked
Here comes Care.
You at the back. Oh, Ucal's by himself. He has to use the perfect execution out. Finally, TT are onto the Baron. It goes over. There's the fate seal, though, as xinliu gets a big hostile takeover pack. He will not be able to survive those. Bailout came through. FPX gets another kill, but the Baron has gone over to TT.
Okay, this time TT find a window of time where Lwx was still reset. He was the very last person to die on FPX at the very end of that last fight, which means TT, they don't have to worry about the Aphelios bringing their items to bear in that place. So TT, it has been a very strained relationship with Baron in this series. Fearness probably going to get collapsed on this side lane as well.
Fearness, you find yourself in a little bit of trouble. The poke comes through, though. He does have a little bit of damage back here. I don't know if he has enough, though. And it should be, Beichuan actually getting the kill. So that'll be another big side lane pickup for TT.
So, yes, strange relationship with Baron in this series, have TT. They end up getting a big play around that one, shutting down the side lane threat as well. Means that TT, when they kind of come back out onto the map, utilize this Baron buff however they can. They don't have to worry about that Fiora kind of just ramming waves into side lane towers against them for the next couple of minutes, or at least the next minute as they take a breather in the gray screen. TT, what are you going to do with this Baron buff now? You have waves still on your side of the map. You're going to have to spend some time to get the map in order. Dragon's up in 1 minute. You're likely going to have to go towards that. Stop FPX getting towards an easy soul point themselves. It is only that Cloud Soul, but when you've got so many melee champions in this game, particularly towards that top side, extra move speed is very, very important. So don't give that up. TT, though, finally get that Baron. Get to choose how they want to use it.
The combo, Beichuan and Ucal, been so potent in the past for TT and in some bright moments in this series here. See if they can pilot this last little bit as this Baron buff still available for another minute, looking at the side lane push.
TT making sure they're not leaving themselves isolated where possible. Ucal, the one that's put on side lane DT with 4 kills and heading towards a death cap on the Akali. You can very much understand why. It's not easy to face up against that Akali in a side lane now. Maybe it would have been a little earlier into that game, but Ucal, once again, making his impact known in one of these games. So TT heading towards this dragon. Thought this was likely going to be the case. Set up towards it, pushed in mid, pushed in bot. Ucal has the teleport to respond, should a play be made. TT going to take that objective off board, and FPX.
Yeah. They're
going to have to wait for this Baron buff to time out, which is of course going to happen in the next minute. And then they're going to have to start clawing back some kind of side lane pressure again, which they haven't really managed to make the most of in this game so far. Fearness dying a couple of times in awkward scenarios, but that's how they're going to have to find their way back into this game somehow.
For sure. And I think that you're looking at kind of those item completions now. You did get 3 items on both Care and Lwx. What's crazy to me is that you had so much gold going over Fearness. He still hasn't hit that 3rd item yet. Obviously, needing to get back now. Probably going to complete that one as well. But that's where some of those item spikes are going to be there to bear for FPX. And while they are losing in the objective scores, at least at this point so far, it is now trying to utilize that to some extent. Get Hacker a big engage and follow it up with the damage.
It is so much easier to find that big engage, though, if you've got some side lane pushed in, kind of get some vision control around one side of the map, because TDT need to be very aware of a Yone or a Fiora kind of making inroads onto their side of things. Hullbreaker's picked up. That's important to note, actually, because that, of course, makes things much easier to play around the sidelines. Level 16 also a hit from Fearness, actually behind an XP compared to Hoya, but he was also picked up with Thornmail at this point. Hoya doing a pretty good job considering how much pressure he's getting put under in that 1v1 matchup as well. Items being picked up, of course, across the board on both sides. Just talked about that Thornmail. Got 3 items heading towards 4 for Huanfeng as well.
GA just picked up for Beichuan as well.
So, should the hammer blow rather, strike hard in the next minute or two, that GA gives Beichuan extra ability to kind of survive the initial engage. Dragon not up for a little bit. Baron not up for a little bit. Here.
Okay, it's just a little Beichuan. It's definitely not Ucal coming up the lane behind him.
Yeah.
And I think Fearness realized there's something afoot here if I see the jungler showing up in my lane.
You know, because we see the hull breaker there, did you play on PBE when the hull breaker used to give the cannon minion like a little pirate hat when it showed it was being buffed? That was the most fun thing. I love that. I'm very sad that it was
Just the hat?
Okay, actually, speaking of that, because it looks like we're in a little bit of a lull state. Baron's up for like a minute, set up towards that side shield, look towards the vision control. What is the thing which you are most sad about being removed from League of Legends? Like items, interactions, like maybe an old rework or something?
Halo Blades Jhin.
Really?
100% Halo Blades Jhin. Of all the things, that's it. That's it.
Okay, you're gonna have to talk me through your reasoning for that.
I miss it, man. The power spike, and it felt so great. You just had so much damage on your fourth shot.
Jhin doing damage? Wow, that's never happened before
crazy.
in my life.
Well, hey, now when we're seeing it play utility a lot, probably we're not seeing that much damage. But you know, I'm a Jhin stan forever and ever. So
I was
do
a big
miss
DFG
the Halo
enjoyer
Blades for
back
sure.
in season 4. I was a big Deathfire Grasp enjoyer. That's almost 10 years ago. That
I
was
do
removed.
miss my original was Hecker and Top though, for sure.
Oh,
I miss Hecker and Top.
Do you remember
my
Keen
first...
playing that in NA, playing like a home guard Hecker in mid as a Z counter? You
Good
got
time.
walking into enemy vision though. So Baron is just about to spawn. Can I come back off the tangent now?
Go away.
Like, looking at this vision control, looking at this vision control, TT. You know what it is, folks. You know what it is. It's Baron bait time once again.
Can we really hold it against them at this point? Like, I think and LWX is a big old shield taken off by the Serpent's Fang. Do we still hold it
really valuable?
They got one.
Things like the shield does immediately come back up. Big Inferno Bolt coming through, but not actually landing that much damage. Lands on the clone.
Just Huanfeng trying to poke out. It's like a mini game. How many shields can I deny here before the team fight starts? So we do get the Mega
I would
Gnar
love to know
inside
how much shield that's stripped already at this point in the game, because you know you tap one arrow onto that Aphelios and it does give them a huge amount of
But look how big that shield is.
And it just keeps going back. One of the big changes to Bloodthirster was less lifesteal. It's no longer 20%. It's now down to 15%. But the shield you get is really big. You have a Severum on top of that. That, of course, has its own stacking shield as well. So, yeah. Very hard to burst through that if that shield remains
Future
intact.
Fire second for xinliu, and then the fourth item completion there for Huanfeng as well. Saw a little bit of completion on the side of TT. Beichuan actually baiting out a little bit of an engage there as well.
Future Fire is an item which is really fallen off in terms of priority. Have to see if that will come into play here, though.
TT's pulling the trigger here. I don't know if they can do that. That's a double
Flash
TP.
ult!
Triple knock. Oh my god, the wombo! And the combo is delivered from the heavens by TT! And FPX have nothing to say. They're cowering under the lightning and the thunder of Thunder Talk Gaming.
Mistakes were made. From 0 to 100 again, very reminiscent of Game 1 victory for TT. It is a mistake around the Baron. TT pounce, they find their team fight. xinliu take a bow, finally lands one of those big ultimates that can change the course of a game, change the course of a series. TT looking to close it out.
I can't believe they're just going to win just like game number 1. They make you think, they make you a little crazy. Maybe you're missing a couple hairs, but TT, they will finish out strong in this best of 3. They'll deny FPX a win, and a 0-7 score streak will be theirs, but TT, they will push themselves to 6 wins on the season.
By no means, again, a clean victory, but after that early game, credit to kind of digging the heels in, knuckling down and overcoming that early advantage that FPX had brought out against them. They gave over that Sejuani for the first time in that